Welcome to Season 3 of The Business Gist, where we're always talking about the human side of the bottom line. In this season, we're talking to business owners on how they're navigating the worldwide pandemic, what they're doing to pivot, and how they're making tough choices between people and profit.
On this episode of The Business Gist, we are speaking with Laura Best, the founder of Passion Collective.
Thank you so much for joining me at the Business Gist podcast today. As we get started here, would you mind just doing a quick introduction about yourself and your business?
Yes. Hi, Megan. It's so lovely to see you again. My name is Laura Best. I'm the founder of Passion Collective. Passion Collective is a community of women. We are helping each other make change happen, positive change in our lives and in other people's lives. We're up to almost 700 Passionados now. So it's a really interesting time for us right now, shall we say.
Well, tell us a little bit more. What is a Passionado?
Passionado is a woman or a person who identifies as a woman that has seen significant success in her life, whether that's through career or general life. Most of our Passionados are high-performing professional women. And our Passionados are asking themselves questions about what more they want. We're asking ourselves questions about our career, about the work that we're doing and whether that's now truly meaningful or fulfilling to us, and really the way we lead our life. So a lot of us, and I'm certainly a Passionado as the first one, I guess, we're in this together. We're thinking about this idea of, we've been taught to have a checklist. And I think certainly women of a certain age, we were brought up to be successful, and the expectation was to be successful. And the checklist was right there. All the things you needed to acquire, all the things you needed to do and be. And our Passionados, we've strived for the last, 10, 15, 20 years to do that. And there comes a point when you ask yourself if that's what you still want. And if there's more or different that you want. And what's interesting about this is that many women feel this way. Many women are on the outside extremely successful and are killing it in many areas of their life, but are starting to feel increasingly disconnected, lonely, or just not quite right with the way that their life is going. And it's an interesting conversation to have, because we should feel so grateful for all of this success and all of this wonderful stuff that we have in our life. And often we don't connect together as women and talk about it. We don't connect together as women and help each other figure out a different way to live, or things that we can tweak in our lives to really help us be happier and more fulfilled. So really, we talk a lot about meaningful work, but it's really about rediscovering your courage, your creativity, and figuring out how to be happier and more fulfilled. And we're doing that together. So yeah, there's a lot, but that's what we love to talk about. And traditionally, before COVID, we were producing amazing events called buzz sessions. The energy from those events was tremendous. It was truly women coming together in a very vulnerable, open way, in a way that is giving to each other, to learn and to really help each other, and also to make something happen. There's a real spark about our buzz sessions. We just had the best one yet, March 5th. We were seeing great momentum with the community coming together, incredible speakers, wonderful magic and buzz from the event. And so obviously we've had to really think about how we still serve our community, how we still come together as a community and help each other in a different way.
So how are you feeling that need? I mean, obviously you're not doing in-person buzz events anymore. Tell me more, how are you keeping that connection alive?
It's a great question. Funnily enough, we've been working on our next iteration as a model since about Q4 last year. When I started Passion Collective more than 5 years ago, it began as a Facebook group. And it began as a way for me just simply to connect with these women that I missed, and women who were all doing the same things as I was. And I was hoping that they were having some of the same conversations in their own minds, but we needed to come together to do that. During that time, Passion Collective has grown, and we've grown as a traditional model. of events and published content, which you certainly understand.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of the outwardly facing model, right? Even though we're a community. And over the last 5 years, I've always known that we want to reach as many women as possible. The things that we talk about are not just Minnesotan women questions. These questions and these challenges for women are global. And we have Passionados throughout the US. We have Passionados in the UK. We have Passionados in Dubai. And with a traditional event model, that is very hard to scale, right? Mm-hmm. So we've been planning and noodling on how to do this. And this year, part of our strategic plan was to make more progress on how to actually do that. So March brought us a great opportunity to really think about how to test some of our assumptions with a new model. And at the same time, try and do as much as we possibly could to help women in whatever way we could. So what we did was throughout March, and I think for a little bit of April, we held weekly mini buzz sessions. They were virtual events. We curated a set of wonderful speakers and experts. We touched on a different topic every week that applied to our Passionados, but also to the current situation that everybody is dealing with. We worked in the best of what we were delivering previously. So what worked before was this combination of storytelling, of workshop, and of connection. So it wasn't, our events were never that you just show up and someone talks for an hour, you have a glass of cheap wine and go home. It's not that model. It was a very interactive and involved model. So we tried to take as much of that as possible and produce one of those every week. And honestly, I thought to myself, the first thing I thought was, well, we shouldn't do anything because there's so much noise. And it just felt like in the first week or two of this crisis, it felt like a deafening noise, right? Everybody was suddenly talking. But funnily enough, I actually happened to watch a great video cast by Seth Godin. It was called Guilt and Generosity. And it was all about how if you are healthy, if you have a phone, if you have something to say, you can help people. And it really just helped me sort of change my mindset to think, well, if we help 2 or 3 Passionados with something, even if it's just once, then that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that literally was the motivation. So we did 1, then we did 2, then we did 3, then we did 4. And by the 4th time, it was so funny. Everybody was much more relaxed with Zoom, and all 4 mini buzzes were wonderful. But the 4th one, you know, I really saw that magic and that buzz coming through. So it's been a really nice way to serve our community, to bring in more Passionados to the community, to talk about some of the things that are really difficult to talk about right now, but do it in a way that it's a trusted and supportive setting.
That's amazing. So you said something at the start where you are really serving women who are saying, is this meaningful to me anymore? Mm-hmm. With everything that's going on in the world, do you feel that that's amplified even more so?
I think that's a great question. I mean, you know, I know many women have lost their jobs over the last 2 months. And so I think in some cases, it's a luxury to be thinking about meaningful work, right? Mm-hmm. Many women and many humans are thinking about how to pay their bills and keep the roof over their head. I think if you're in the position where maybe you've been in a role for 15, 20 years, and you've got suddenly this supposed time and space, even though the kids are at home and you're doing online learning at the same time, but you have this time and space to reflect on what's important. And this terrible global pandemic the world is going through is forcing us to really think about some of these more meaningful questions. I do think many people are questioning what they're going to do going forward to whether it's make a difference in a more cliched way, I guess, but genuinely to have a positive impact. But then, like I say, on the flip side, I think there's a very genuine anxiety about, do I even have a bloody job? Right. I need money to pay Excel Energy next month. So, you know, I think it's this interesting dynamic right now of a lot of reflection combined with anxiety. I know a lot of Passionados are taking the time to learn. There are a tremendous amount of wonderful free sessions like we ran. They're everywhere, right? So there's an opportunity to learn, but I also feel like women in particular are taking on a huge burden in the home right now and may not have the time to think about the meaningful work they might do in the future. So I think it's a complex conversation, but I'm certain that women are thinking about it and wondering how to change moving forward.
What do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned so far about your business model has been?
It's a good question. I think it's just been absolute validation on a couple of fronts. One, when I was talking with my advisory board in November, December last year about our new model, which we're about to launch, we were having quite robust discussions about whether people would even want to engage online, whether virtual connections even make a difference. And there was one line of thought that said, well, no, we've got to do traditional events. It's the only way we're going to come together as a community, because that's where the magic happens. And I think it was Gloria Steinem, right, that said, if you want to make change happen, you've got to get people in the room. And I'm a huge subscriber to that thought. At the same time, it's almost been a yes and scenario the last couple of months to realize once we can get back in person and have that magic in a room, it's going to be incredible. But we need to take what we do to the Passionados. Our demographic are, overworked, overscheduled, incredibly passionate, striving, amazing women. And most of what I've heard over the last 5 years is, I really want to engage with Passion Collective. I just can't make the events. I got to take my kids to soccer practice. So, it's been the timing is unfortunate. I really wish we wouldn't have had this crisis to have the validation, but I think what we've seen is people craving that connection, people going through tremendous personal growth to get comfortable with something like Zoom, reaching out in a different way, and also this feeling of general forgiveness about showing up in a different way. So for us, as we plan to take Passion Collective online, and that opens us up to essentially the world of women. It really does, because now we have products and offerings that we can offer up to women who don't need to be in the room with us. That's a very exciting thing for us. At the core of it, though, is still how do we connect together as a community? There's a big difference between a network and a community, right? A network, we all have networks, but a community is, full of shared belief and values, and it's people coming together because they want to be together and they believe in the same thing and they're aspiring to the same thing. So that's what we never want to lose. So these discussions and sort of sandboxes with models have been really helpful to help us figure out the best way to serve our community.
What do you see your Passionados or even yourself doing differently now?
I see a lot of women getting more comfortable with Zoom. I was having a conversation with somebody that I mentor, and this was probably about 2.5 months ago. And interesting enough, she was going through a job interview scenario, and she was saying that she doesn't like to turn her camera on. She doesn't want to do this. It's very difficult because we've been taught as women to play the game, right? When you're in a room with somebody, especially when there's a power dynamic, and we know how to work a room, we know the body language, we know how to sit and how to view things, and we kind of control our appearance and everything else. And then suddenly you're on Zoom and it feels like it's out of control. And we talked quite a bit about this in one of our mini buzzers, about the fact that this gives us an opportunity to actually be more of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we also do have to adapt to a different way of working and communicating. Now, this person who I was mentoring, it was brilliant because, she showed up to a couple of these mini buzzers and she had a camera full on and she was engaging in the discussion, and it was wonderful to see. So I think for many women, there have been those concerns and fears there and insecurities about, well, am I still going to be perceived in a certain way? Am I still going to connect? Is it still going to make sense? And I think people are realizing that everybody's in the same boat, you know?
Yeah. I did another podcast with a gentleman who was talking about one of his business partners that's, shared with him. He said, if you told me a year ago I'd be okay with my kids popping up behind me while I'm in the middle of a big senior leadership meeting, he'd be like, no way. He's like, but now, yeah, they come in and out, and so do my colleagues, and it just is, right? Like it's a whole new norm, and it's a whole different way of truly being authentic.
Yeah, I mean, I often talk about this armor that we've in the past, and maybe still we wear when we're working, right, or we're engaging with people. Some days it feels like you've got to strap on armor to go into your office to sort of have the certain interactions you need to have at the water cooler in the senior leadership meeting or whatever it is. And anyone who says they don't do that, I think is lying. I mean, good for you if you feel like you can be 100% authentic in your office workplace, right? But I think what's really interesting is how much those guards have been forced to come down, and how much more connection there is because of it. And it boils down to, as humans, our craving for community and connection. That's really what it's all about. And it's been wonderful to see that across the board.
Yeah, I was talking with my neighbor who does a lot of video conferencing, and I do too. And, obviously today I did take the time to do my hair, but a lot of meetings, it's like, no makeup, hair's in a ponytail, you're wearing a sweatshirt. And I think those barriers have come down, right? Because it's like people are just so into, this is what's got to get done. And you're not putting on all that same polish that you might have done in the past.
And I think, as we conducted our buzz sessions, we, figured out how to use the technology to really encourage deeper connection. So in our second mini buzz, we used the breakout functionality within Zoom. And I got to tell you, it was terrifying pressing that button for the first time. So we had like 35 people on this Zoom, and I'm trying to manage everybody, right? Thinking, oh my God, this is so much easier when we're in person at a venue. But the power of those breakout rooms and that small group gathering was really wonderful. And was the transition perfect? No, but we didn't lose anyone. And everybody really connected in a deeper way. And if you think about, really, that's been happening over the last only 4 to 6 weeks, and people are getting tremendously comfortable with that, I think. Or at least it looks like they are. I know I certainly get more out of a virtual session if I'm in a smaller group, and if you can share your personal story. And, with Passion Collective, that's what we've always been about. And so for us, it's about thinking about how can we still encourage people to show up with vulnerability, knowing that they're going to be in an environment where they're going to get support and encouragement. And it's not just about taking, it's about giving. And I think at the beginning, one of the reasons I was nervous when we did our first mini buzz is that still going to happen? People still going to show up with that heart-centered approach? And they absolutely did from day one of the mini buzz. And so that's why, a lot of that validation is helping us with our new model and figuring out how to, if you think, we may do mini buzzes with women from all over the world at some point, if we can get the time zones correct. How do you facilitate that with technology in a way that people are still showing up with their true selves and able to share, and they're not putting on that armor as much as they would do in maybe a professional sort of networking session?
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously there's so much struggle going on right now. I'm sure you're seeing it with all of your group, friends, networks. Are there any silver linings that are appearing to you, even if they're small ones?
I know me personally, more time with my daughter has been fantastic. I mean, I know every working parent, myself included, we've been through, many stages with the online learning model. I think what's been wonderful is watching her learn. We often don't get the chance as parents to watch our children get an idea or actually go through that learning process. So that's been wonderful, and just spending more time with her. I would echo something that I saw Amanda Brinkman from Deluxe say in a recent article about there's not as much rushing. It's not that we're not productive or active or busy, but it feels like the pace has come down a little bit. And for working parents and working women in particular, myself included, I think many days we felt like we were just making it through.
Mm-hmm.
And the time we were giving to ourselves was nothing. And that's actually one thing we really focused on at Passion Collective is you may only have an hour a month to give to yourself to go out and check all these things off your list. I got to make new friends. I got to have some fun. I got to learn something. I've got to work on my own stuff. So that's where the buzz sessions came from. It was, how can we get all of that into 1 hour? Because that's all the time that many women have in a month. I think we have more time now, right? And on the one hand, that's can be a bad thing. But I think that sense of time and space, I think for me has been a silver lining. And I know for many other parents. On the flip side, there's also a tremendous amount of stress. I have a friend with 2 children. Her and her husband are working 100 hours a week between them. So I think it changes together. I think from a business perspective, the silver linings have been so wonderful to see in terms of the adaptation of businesses in the way that they're helping their customers, and even the way that the CEOs of these businesses are thinking innovatively in terms of not just how to save their employees' jobs, but how to introduce a new service or product to their business that actually expands their business model. That's been really cool to see in many respects. And there's some awful stories of furloughs, obviously, Best Buy, and even my local hair salon.
Mm-hmm.
But that innovation is really beginning to come through, and it's been wonderful to see.
What's kind of been disrupting, right? It's there is not a normal for anybody anymore. And so it almost gives you permission to throw everything that you know out the window and start with a blank slate and say, what is it that I really want to do and how am I going to do it? Whether that's you personally or a business or a service, and how you deliver it. And I think that's been super fascinating to me to just watch how some people just get stuck in this is how I do it and I have to do it and it doesn't work anymore and get so frustrated, compared to the other people that are like, well, that's not going to work anymore. What about this, right? And they're just open. They're just open to trying new things and not being afraid to fail, because what do you have to lose at this point?
Well, that's the key, right? What do you have to lose? And many of us do not have a choice. You know, I'm in the fortunate position where I haven't had to lay off employees. You know, I work with a very flexible team of consultants and volunteers, and we've still come together. But I haven't had to lay off or furlough 51,000 employees, right? Yep. But look at how Best Buy is really thinking about the way they serve their customer. And I think for me, that's the most important thing for us to think about is, I think in times of crisis, you can go very inward, right? And I certainly did for the first week. Like, how am I going to manage? How am I going to do the online learning? We had so much momentum with Passion Collective. What's going to happen now? And 1,000,001 questions, right? And I think for me, when I changed my mindset to think about, wait a minute, but how can I actually help other people? It sounds a little bit twee, as we say in England, but it's absolutely true. I think if we lead with how are we serving, how are we helping our audiences, how can we reach new audiences with the things that we're already doing really well? And that was the approach we took with our buzz sessions, is let's take the magic and figure out how to use that magic in a different way to reach these people, to help them. It's scary because it almost feels like you're offering out your hand to help someone and they might not take it. That's the feeling I had for a solid week or two, where it was just like, well, should we do this? What if we don't help? What if people think and I think you just have to reach out your hand and say, look, here's something that might help. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that helps people. And I think the companies and brands who have focused on that are doing well right now, as well as they can. And I do think that consumers are seeing that. And with the time they have to reflect, I think that's going to have real long-term benefits for brands as we move forward.
That's really interesting. So as you kind of reflect back over the last 8 weeks here, has there been a mantra that has helped get you through your days?
I think it's changed hour to hour.
That is the mantra. What's next, right?
Yeah, I think, right. All I can say is what's today? What's the time? Yeah, what's today? Keep going is a big mantra right now, and in a really positive way. We're building a new online model. It's going to be an on-demand model for Passionados. It's a really exciting thing that we're doing. There's a tremendous amount of work involved. We don't have a big team to figure this out, so it's a lot of self-learning, a lot of exploration, and a lot of breaking down fear and thinking through problems. So what I'm telling myself right now is keep going, because I know what we're doing is right. And I know that we're going to be able to help our community with this additional offering that we have. Some days it's, you just want to sort of sit on the back deck in the sun and have a cocktail and read a book for a few hours. It sounds great. And some days I do.
Yeah.
It's not this kind of keep going at all costs, but it's just, keep the faith. A little bit of John Bon Jovi there. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's John Bon Jovi. Let's just think of him.
I'll get you through a day, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends what year and haircut, but yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, so with that said, do you have any advice for other business leaders?
I think the first one is take care of yourself. And that's so easy for us to all tell each other to do, right? But I think especially as professional women who are not just trying to hold down a job or a business, but a family, a relationship. I mean, you name it. We're not even multitasking anymore. We're million tasking, right? We don't have our self-care places to go. So I think a big thing for women has been figuring out how to take care of ourselves. And I think that's the first thing, that we have to take care of ourselves. I think the second thing is thinking about how we can help. And it's not in the help can be such a loaded word, right? But it's genuinely in the how can you make a connection with somebody, and how can you help them with something that they're trying to solve and figure out. And I think whether you're an entrepreneur or a 70,000 person corporate entity, I think if everybody is thinking more about their audiences and really thinking about them first, I think that's only going to help. And as marketers, we know that, right? That's really what marketing people have been trying to do for years. So I think it's really taking care of yourself and thinking about that audience and how you can genuinely try to offer your hand out to help.
Well, speaking of help, you do grants for women, right?
We do.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we have our grant program called the Atomic Grants, and this is sponsored by the wonderful Atomic Data. They are a huge sponsor of ours, and Keystone Group International, sorry. And these grants are available 4 times this year, so we're giving one per quarter. The deadline for the next round is May 31st, so not much time. You get cash, so $1,500, and up to 6 hours of business coaching from Keystone Group International. We're looking for women who are wanting to make a positive change in their lives and or the lives of other people. So in our first round, we saw applications from startups, from women who wanted to change their careers, all sorts of different ideas and ways that women are trying to make change happen. And this is our way to show our support and also to help activate some of those really early stage ideas. So it doesn't have to be a business idea. It just has to be about creating a positive impact. Our first winners, or recipients rather, were 2 women who are running a podcast called Colombian Influence. And they're doing an incredible job connecting with people from Colombia who have been adopted and making connections with those people to have the conversation about the experience of being adopted from Colombia. And their dream is to actually grow the business to family services and genuinely connecting people back together.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a wonderful program. It's 4 times this year. Please apply.
So where should they go to either apply for the grant or to learn more about becoming a Passionado?
PassionCollective.co. Yep, that's our website. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook too, but our website's the best place to go. And there's a link to a very brief application form for the grants that I have heard has been a helpful exercise, even if you don't end up being a recipient. So yeah, please do engage. We'd love to see you.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Everything you shared was so deep and insightful. And I can attest to having a lot of the same conversations with so many of my friends who are just like, what's next? And is this what I want to do? So
thank you for doing this and for helping have these conversations. This is all about connecting, right? And helping people talk and connect together openly. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So thank you, Megan.
Thank you for joining us today on The Business Gist. Make sure to follow us at thebusinessgist.com.